sword. And that's why Jesus had to come, to open the way back up through belief in him and through love. And that is why Satan is obsessed, why he keeps shooting up rockets and missions to break through the firmament. And maybe that is even what CERN was designed for. All the curses were of the dust. We live on the dust on the earth. So your eyes are the hive. Your eyes are the hive. Now that's going to bring about some really negative feelings for a lot of people. Just like the owl in the sky brings about negative feelings. And you have to ask yourself why you feel that way. You feel that way because the enemy has designed for you to feel that way. But it is the truth. It is the truth. You're seeing it in plain sight right now as I speak, in the diagram of the rods and the cones at the back of your eye. But here is the hope. The hope is Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was crucified in a place called Golgotha. And at that scene, he was between two thieves. Golgotha means skull, the skull of your head. So, in effect, Jesus was showing you that you need to crucify your eyes. And he looked to the thief on the right, the same place he said to cast your net to get the fish. And at that point, he said, "You will be with me in paradise." Leaving one eye, the eye of God. That's Jesus in the middle, crucified. The sacrifice to bring us back to the original plan of the Garden of Eden, of not knowing good and evil, not knowing both sides of the brain, but being on one side with the Father. Perfection and everlasting life. You see, Jesus gives us the answer if only we look. He tells us, if your eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life with one eye than to have two eyes and be thrown into the fire of hell. He's talking about our reality. Your eye being single, and that being the way to knowledge and understanding the nature of God. The two eyes deceive you. That is the problem. Good and evil, the two eyes. It is the way to hell. When your eye is single, you get it. You understand. You're living in the right side of the brain. Another truth that the enemy has tried to hijack, that you can somehow gain enlightenment through a pineal experience without Christ, and it is simply untrue. Christ and God is our pineal experience. That's what it is. It's finding Him, not anything else, not making yourself a God, not reaching other levels without His sacrifice. The only way is through Him. That's the only way to enter the kingdom. And now that we've discussed the eye, we're going to get into the exact makeup of our universe. And we're going to study the area of eclipses. Because how do eclipses work in the inner eye, lens, optic, earth model? Let's get into that next. And we're going to try to wrap our brain around how eclipses work. And lunar and both solar. We're going to look more into the sun and the moon's path, according to the Book of Enoch. Now, to start things out, I think this is fascinating. It says that the sun shines with the seventh portion of light from the moon, but the dimensions of both are equal. So the sun and the moon are the same size, according to Enoch. That is why eclipses can happen, because they're exactly the same size. So Enoch is correct. How could he have known this? Well, because it was inspired. Now, more revelations here, as Enoch describes the moon as well as an orb, just like he describes the sun. So I'm sorry to tell you, but the moon does in fact have another side to it. We only see one side of the moon in a track, like that rocket ride at Disneyland. Same concept as what we are told about the globe Earth, that it is locked in place. And we are only seeing one face of it all the time as it moves around. So what is a lunar eclipse then, becomes the question. And I've thought about that, and we're going to continue on pulling this apart. So, if the luminaries are orbiting above the lens, where is this shadow coming from that blocks the moon's light during a lunar eclipse? So how does a lunar eclipse work? Well, it works in much of the same way as our normal globe theory lunar eclipse works, because with a contact lens shaped Earth, we can still see the top of that Earth go through and between the line of sight between the sun and the moon, as we see here. And so it is virtually the same thing. We're just dealing with half of an Earth shaped like a lens. So we get the same effect. As the sun and the moon are opposite one another, the Earth, the top of the Earth just happens to get in the way, and that's how we get our lunar eclipse. And you see, this is why a completely flat Earth model can't work, because there's nothing to get in the way of the full moon. That's why you need that bell shape or that contact lens shape of the Earth itself to make it block it. And so that's what we're dealing with here. Pretty amazing stuff. But it proves a lot of theories, and I appreciate these questions, because the more questions you ask and we get explanations, it will strengthen your resolve and your belief in this model. And this was the proof that I was looking for, to know for sure that the number 88 was not bad. And it says here that for its days in 8 years are less than these of the sun by 80 days, and which 80 days are its diminution in 8 years. So that is the difference of the moon cycle versus the sun cycle. In 8 years, 80 days. The year then becomes truly complete, according to the station of the moons and the station of the sun, which rise in the different gates, which rise and set in them for 30 days. So, this is one cycle, 8 years, 80 days. And that is why some of you have said that 88 represents completion. It's written in the heavens. Now, what Satan does with that is a whole different story, but he has some deception on the horizon. You can believe that, because we've been bombarded with 88. But one thing you can be sure of is that Satan will try to claim that for his own, just as he did in ancient Egypt. And more things that Enoch had no way of knowing, because he had never been to the North Pole, according to historians. That in the world above to those gates the stars turn, but never set. And those are the stars around the North Star, the North Pole star. What you see in the sky at the North Pole, the stars that never set. How did Enoch know any of this? And one of these is greater than all which goes round the whole world, and that is what we see at the equator. The stars that go around the whole world. And as I've outlined in previous videos, Enoch goes on to describe the 7 major mountain ranges, the 7 rivers of the world, the 7 major rivers, and their directions, and finally, the 7 great continents, the islands in the sea. How would he know this? So what happens next? Well, Enoch tells us, and we know that the great prophets prophesied that if in the last days those days had not been cut short, that there would be no flesh left. And this was quoted again from Enoch. In the days of the sinners, the years shall be shortened. Their seed shall be backward in their prolific soil, and everything done on earth shall be subverted and disappear in its season. The rain shall be restrained, and heaven shall stand still. In those days the fruits of the earth shall be late, and not flourish in their season, and in their season the fruits of the trees shall be withholden. The moon shall change its laws, and not be seen in its proper period. But in those days shall heaven be seen, and barrenness shall take place in the borders of the great chariots in the west. Heaven shall shine more than when illuminated by the orders of light, while many chiefs among the stars of authority shall err, perverting their ways and works. Those shall not appear in their season who command them, and all the classes of the stars shall be shut up against sinners. And the sinners shall transgress and think themselves gods, while evil shall be multiplied among them, and punishment shall come upon them, so that all of them are destroyed. Woe to those who think they are gods.